TitleMatchNetwork.com.
I remember I was pretty down about everything. I saw it all as, and a lot of us did. A lot of us thought that this was fly by night. Like, you better make all the money you can because this thing is going to be tits up in about 3 months from now. WrestleMania 1 was a make or break. And there was a lot of guys that weren't so sure that it was going to be the big success that it was. And a lot of people thought they'd shot as big wad and that this thing was going to go implode. And I remember when I first met Jim, because I was like desperate I was in New York, Madison Square Garden, working with Rene Goulet, I think. And I didn't have I had trouble even getting a ride to and from the buildings and stuff like that because I worked for my dad.
Right.
I didn't have a driver's license because they suspended my driver's license from so many speeding tickets. And I couldn't get anyone to sort of help me out. Orndorff was one of the few guys that helped me. There's a few other guys that helped me out in those days.
Well, I came in the very first night.
Madison Square Garden, I remember telling Jim, I said, Jim, save whatever you can. Make whatever you can. The money's pretty good, but it ain't going to last. And Jim, I
hadn't started wrestling yet.
Jim was like, geez, I just got here. It ain't going far, ain't going long.
Whose idea was it to put you guys together at the office?
It was my idea.
Okay.
Because like I said, I told Jim I came to paint this gloomy picture, and of course Jim was managed by Fuji in the beginning.
Right.
They kind of had the half-assed plans for Jim, but nothing too heavy. And I was going nowhere. But George Scott kept promising me this because he promised me in the beginning when he made the deal with my father. He goes, "We're not just bringing you in. We're going to bring you in. We're going to do big stuff. We're going to work with all the top guys. And you're going to be a big star." And I kept bringing that up to him all the time. He said I was going to be a big star and I'm going to work with all the top guys. And so I'm working with nobody. He kept saying, "We'll come up with something." And that's when, of course, they came up with the Cowboy Bret Hart thing. And I can remember driving to Brantford, Ontario with Jim in the car and Adrian Adonis. And I remember telling George Scott once, finally got my big push. I'm going to be a cowboy. Cowboy Bret Hart. And they're going to ride up to the ring on a horse. And I remember Jim was the one that kept laughing. So every time we'd have to be quiet in the car for a couple of minutes, and all of a sudden Jim would break into snickers. And I would finally, by the time we drove up, did the TV tapings where I don't know if I worked or not because I was getting ready to become this superstar cowboy. I remember we drove back all night, and I just had this gloomy picture of this cowboy Bret Hart thing being a disaster. I remember Jim's laugh echoing in my ear. I knocked on George Scott's door about 1 in the morning and said, "George, I want to be a cowboy." And then the whole thing went out the window. And that's where I said to George Scott, I said, Jim's just tagged up with, or it's managed by Jimmy Hart now. Because it just happened within a week of that. I said, we all got the last name Hart. I said, why don't you call us the Hart Formation? And he goes, "You could never be a heel. You don't have the face or the look." He goes, "Trust me." Because but don't worry, something will come up. Give us a little more time. Give me the pat on the back. And when I went down the hall, I thought, geez, I was fucked up and everything. I just blew the horse in the same package with the doll and all that. The marketing and the merchandising. And Vince, there's a lot of guys making a lot of money on that kind of stuff. I thought, I just made the biggest mistake of my life. But then that was about 3-4 weeks before WrestleMania 1. And I'm not sure what Jim was doing in that period. I just started working the cards, middle of the card or whatever, as a heel.
Right.
And they were giving Jim a pretty good, fair push, and they were jobbing him out or anything. And I remember it was a couple weeks before WrestleMania, and I got mad and I showed up at TV Poughkeepsie because they took me off TVs. And George Scott had taken me off the TV tapings again. Every week I was off TV, so I wasn't getting any TV time. When you're not getting any TV time, your days are numbered. And I had made up my mind when I showed up in Poughkeepsie because I drove in a snowstorm and barely almost got killed getting there. And I had to bribe the guy at the car rental to let me out of the car so I could make it, even though I didn't have my valid license.
Right.
But anyway, I got to the show and I was off and I got mad. And I told George Scott I called the next day, and I did. And George, first thing I called him that next morning. And I had kind of talked to Jim a little bit about it, but nothing, because it was too far out of my head that it would ever happen.
Right.
And when I called George in the morning, he said, I called up to quit. And I called, and he said, the first thing he said, he goes, guess what? We're going to do exactly what you wanted. I was like, I don't even know what he was talking about.
Right.
Tagging up with Jim, and we're going to call you the Hart Foundation.
Whose idea was to put Jimmy with you guys?
That was basically already sort of in motion. Jimmy was already with Jim. But I remember at that time, the first thought I had in my head was that I didn't want to fuck anything up for Jim. I didn't want to screw everything up for him. Here he was doing okay as a heel on his own. And all of a sudden they stick him with me, and maybe it's like, yeah, you're stuck with me.
I was a real fat belly, slobbering, statistical good heel. With all the beard, the ugly looks, spitting and all the bad habits, fat stomach, the bad outfit, the long ties, the epitome of just bad wrestler.